What if the most suspicious man in Miami suddenly found himself in the deserts of Albuquerque? Imagine James Doakes, the explosive detective from Dexter, known for never trusting anyone and always sniffing out secrets, stepping into the same world where Walter White built the empire of Heisenberg. His very presence would change the entire dynamic of the series, because if there's one thing Doakes knew how to do, it was finding the monster hiding behind a normal mask.
Surprise, motherfucker!
The real question is, would Walter White have lasted that long with Doakes around? To understand Doakes' impact on Breaking Bad, we need to remember who he was in Dexter. A detective with Miami Metro, a war veteran, direct, violent, and with an almost supernatural instinct for spotting liars. While everyone saw Dexter as a quiet colleague, Doakes knew something was wrong, and he was right. Now picture that same energy applied in Albuquerque. If Doakes were transferred to work with the DEA, his style would be the complete opposite of Hank Schrader's. Hank had humor.
Jesus, what do you got in there? $100?
$500,000 in cash.
So many times Hank tried to be funny, and we all know Heisenberg's career could have ended right here in this scene. But Hank was so much more than that. Relaxed with barbecues and beers, and sometimes didn't take things seriously enough. Doakes, on the other hand, never lowered his guard. He would arrive in Albuquerque ready to hunt, and Walter White would not appear to him as just a harmless teacher. From the very first meeting, Doakes would sense that something was off. But that was only the beginning, because Doakes was not the kind of man who let inconsistencies slide. Walter could fool his family, his colleagues, and even Hank himself. But Doakes? Not a chance. He'd notice the changes immediately. From a sick, fragile teacher to a colder, more arrogant and confident man. He'd notice Walt's excuses, the unexplained cash, and the sudden absences. Doakes had a special talent for locking onto someone and not letting go until he found the truth. In Dexter, that instinct almost blew the entire secret open. In Breaking Bad, it would be even more dangerous because Walter wasn't prepared to deal with someone so aggressive and relentless. While Hank laughed and called Walt the nerd of the family, Doakes would already be building a mental case file full of suspicions. And the more Doakes watched, the more Walter's web of lies would unravel. Here's the central point. Walter White was a master manipulator. He knew how to control conversations, flip stories to his advantage, and use his family man image to gain sympathy. But Doakes was the complete opposite. He didn't have patience for theatrics, didn't care for speeches. He was explosive, direct, and uniquely skilled at intimidating even the most confident people. Picture a family dinner. While Hank laughed at jokes, Doakes would sit there staring at Walter, searching for any sign of weakness. Walt, who hated losing control, would feel that pressure immediately. It wouldn't be a slow chess match like with Gus Fring. It would be constant confrontation. But the real problem would come once Doakes crossed paths with Jesse Pinkman. Jesse was always the weakest link in Walter's empire. Emotional, impulsive, and terrible at keeping secrets. With Hank, Jesse could slip away because he wasn't taken seriously. But Doakes, he wouldn't let anything slide. He would interrogate Jesse, intimidate him, push him, and eventually force him to spill details that could expose Walter. This would put Walter against the wall much earlier. Instead of making it all the way to season 5, Walter might already be hunted down by the middle of season 2 or 3. The fragile balance of his lies couldn't withstand the constant weight of Doakes' suspicion. And this is where Walter would face an impossible choice. In Dexter, Doakes paid the price for his instincts. His obsession made him the greatest threat to Dexter, but it also cost him his life. In Breaking Bad, the same instinct would make him Heisenberg's most dangerous enemy. There are two likely scenarios. In the first, Doakes discovers the truth too early. Walter, already slipping into his darker Heisenberg persona, wouldn't hesitate to deal with the problem, just like he did with Gale, Mike, and others who got in the way. Cold, ruthless, and inevitable. Doakes could end up eliminated, with Walt staging it to look like the cartel was responsible. In the second scenario, Doakes survives long enough to convince Hank or the DEA that Walter isn't who he seems. That would change everything. The fall of Heisenberg could happen before his empire even rose to power, cutting off major storylines like the war with Gus or Walt's total domination. But there's a third possibility, and it's even more dangerous. What if Doakes simply got tired of the system? After years of dealing with police corruption, bureaucracy, and injustice, it's not impossible to imagine him turning. In this alternate scenario, Doakes could join the cartel, or even rise as a rival kingpin against Heisenberg. Think about it. Tuco was chaotic, Gus was cold and calculated, but Doakes would be something entirely new. He had military training, deep knowledge of law enforcement, and street instincts. An an enemy who could attack Walter both on the ground and through the legal system. That would make him even more deadly than Gus, because Walter couldn't predict his moves. And this what if leads to an even bigger question. With Doakes in play, several iconic Breaking Bad moments would look completely different. Tuco kidnapping Jesse? Doakes might have stepped in before it escalated. Gus's infamous explosion? It might never happen because Walter could be exposed before that point. Even Skyler's arc would shift as Walter's lies would crumble under Doakes' pressure at home. And Saul Goodman? Forget it. Doakes wouldn't buy Saul's tricks for a second. He'd push hard until cracks started to show, dragging Walter's entire network down with him. Instead of the slow, steady rise of Heisenberg, we'd see a story about one man desperately trying to survive under the relentless gaze of a detective who never looked away. Doakes in Breaking Bad would change everything. The series we know, full of slow manipulations, chess-like battles, and tragic downfalls, would become a relentless manhunt. Walter might never have become the legend we remember. The empire of Heisenberg could have collapsed long before it reached its peak, undone by a single man's suspicion. In the end, Walter's greatest enemy might not have been Gus, the cartel, or even his cancer. His true enemy could have been the detective who never let anything slip, James Doakes. But it wouldn't just be Walter's empire under threat. The master strategist, Gus Fring, would view Doakes as an unacceptable variable. Gus built his empire on discretion, precision, and control. Doakes is the opposite. He is loud, chaotic, and driven by obsession. To Gus, a detective like Doakes is more dangerous than the entire DEA combined. He is a rabid dog that cannot be bought or controlled. Gus would likely give Mike the order to deal with Doakes long before he got close to the truth. The question would be, could Mike even eliminate a man who is in many ways his reflection on the side of the law? Doakes' presence would create a war in the shadows that could destroy Gus's empire from within.